Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and in today's episode, we are going to be talking to Jacksonville.com, Florida Times Union writer, Demetrius Harvey. What's going on, man?
Nothing much. I haven't got my hair cut in a while, so that's why it's all messed up. But other than that, I'm doing all right.
Well, man, hey, they'll be all right. You'll survive, man. You're going to survive, man. Go ahead and be a little
Maybe a
scruffy for a
little
little bit. You'll be all right. But yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are currently the reigning AFC South champions. Going to talk about the additions, the growth, just the different camp goings on that are probably happening as well. So it's going to be interesting and fun talking about that. We're going to get into that in a second, but first we always do the get off your chest segment. Now it can be about sports, it can be about football, basketball, wherever. But this one, yeah, we're definitely keeping it football, but we're going to keep it college football this time. Now you see players getting suspended or dismissed from teams and things like that. That's unfortunately, that's a normal part of reality of college football. The transfer portal as well. But recently I came across something that really kind of threw me off. It's a player at Clemson. His name is TJ Dudley. Now, he got dismissed from the team, but you have to hear what he reportedly got dismissed for. He reportedly got dismissed for selling pictures of his teammates on OnlyFans. Yes, you heard that correctly. Selling pictures of his teammates on OnlyFans. Now, I looked around and I'm hoping that this is false. I'm hoping that it's some kind of hoax or something. I'm hoping it is. But looking around, it doesn't quite look that way. So if it's wrong and it finds out that he did not do that, then hey, it was a false report. But looking around, it looks like it could be real. First thing I have to ask is why? Why would you do that? What is the purpose of that? Come on, man. Secondly, you can't be trusted in a locker room ever again. You cannot have a phone in a locker room ever again. No. And if you do transfer somewhere, that probably has to be somewhere in the rules for you. Because no, you just violated the sanctum of the locker room by basically catching people at their vulnerable moments. I can actually speak to that. But that just rubbed me the wrong way when I saw that. And I was like, no, man, you can't be doing that. Like I said, it's reportedly, I hope it's false, but it doesn't quite look like that's false. And I just got to shake my head about that one. I mean, Demetrius, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's just a crazy situation. I mean, I couldn't imagine as a football player, as a teammate of his, what they're thinking right now. Like, is my picture on only? Like, what pictures are on only? Like, if that actually did occur. So, yeah, no, that guy's exiled. If that happened, that guy's exiled from every football team. It doesn't matter D1, D2, D3. To me, I couldn't, in good conscience, as a coach, allow that person to be on my team. I mean, it just is what it is. So if that's the case, then yeah, he's done.
Yeah, it sounds like a mess. I mean, he may be a talented player, but he wasn't necessarily thinking this one all the way through.
Nah.
That's this episode's Get It Off Your Chest segment. And of course, we got to move forward now to talk about the champions of the AFC South, the reigning champions. Sounds a little wild to say that, doesn't it, Demetrius?
Sounds weird. It sounds weird. You haven't heard that since 17. Then before that, I don't even remember. So it's it's strange. I think that a lot of people kind of never had this expectation until Trevor Lawrence came about. But it's crazy to think that they're here now, and then that it is what it is. What happened last season?
Right. And then it's just amazing the run they went on. I mean, you win 6 of your last 7 games to make the playoffs. Meanwhile, the team that was ahead of you loses 7-8 straight games to miss the playoffs, which is like It's just wild. It's just something you don't expect. It's almost like winning the lottery. You don't necessarily expect it, even though you play because like mega millions now. It's like what 1.5 billion. You
Something
play,
like
you
that.
expect to win, but you playing to win. It just kind of that awkward situation. And you're like, oh wow, we're here, we won. That type of thing. But
Hmm.
I know the Jacksonville Jaguars expected to win, though. So, I'm not going to, say they were the lottery winners or any of that nature. But one thing they did win in, though, is actually selecting Trevor Lawrence. That was the lottery ticket that they did win. And he showed up for them at the end of the season. Of course, the last 7 games of the season, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And they finished 6-1 down the stretch to make the playoffs. So, question for you is, how is he kind of looking going from that kind of year 2 to year 3 so far?
Yeah, so far so good. It's kind of funny because I've done a couple different radio shows and everything, and people talk to me or ask me about Trevor, and honestly, I have nothing. There's nothing to say because what he showed last year, is pretty much the player that he is this year. Just maybe a little bit more elevated. The leadership skills. Maybe he's trying to fit things into tighter windows, and make sure he gets the chemistry with Calvin Ridley. There's like different things that he's sort of working on where. Trevor's the least of this team's worries. And that's crazy to say because in years past, the quarterback position for the Jaguars was a revolving door. There was a year where Gardner Minshew started, Jake Luton started. I'm sure no one knows who that even is. Mike Glennon started for the Jaguars during that 2020 season. So, there's been a lot of quarterbacks that have come through this town and sort of have made their way out within a few years. Nick Foles on a huge contract was out within a year. So there's situations like that where you think, wow, the Jaguars actually do have a guy who you don't have to talk about and say, well, as long as the quarterback is good this year, maybe they'll have something. No, the quarterback is good. And so now you just keep going. And as long as the rest of the team is good, maybe they'll have something. So yeah, so far so good for Trevor. I think that there's nothing but good things to say about him. He's thrown a couple interceptions in practice, but again, I think some of that is him just trying to fit things into tighter windows. Obviously they're not scheming up against the defense. They're kind of just going running their plays against their own defense. So, so far so good.
Yeah, definitely brighter days than his rookie season. And boy,
Yeah.
we're not gonna dive into the rookie season. That's a lot going on there. But what do you kind of look for him in terms of year 3 and in terms of his growth, and then also the growth of the relationship between him and Doug Peterson?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because now that he's here, what do you expect more? I think that first of all, starting fast. Last year he struggled with that. So did the whole team, but he particularly struggled with starting fast. You would see him kind of get off to a slow start the first couple drives, and then slowly start to kick in. By the third quarter, he was rolling. But you got to have that in the first and second quarter, and that's sort of why they were losing a lot of these games that were very close because he was able to come on late, but it was too late. He had already made too many mistakes, or the offense had already made too many mistakes in the past. So I think right now is just starting fast. You want to see him sort of be more controlled. You want to see him take over the team in terms of that leadership. You want to be able to see him take the reins. And I think right now, Christian Kirk said it best: the light switches on with him. And so that's sort of what you're dealing with. And the same goes for him and the relationship with Doug Peterson. I think a year of playing and coaching together. You would think that would just expand what your relationship is like. Doug as a coach understands and has learned Trevor, throughout this season. Last year he was kind of playing, catch up. He had to figure out what happened last year. He had to figure out what his deficiencies were, during training camp last year. He had to figure out what his deficiencies were during the first couple weeks of the season, figure out what plays he could actually call with him. Now, I don't think any of that is a question. I think now all they have to do is keep pushing and keep installing new things and keep that relationship growing. But yeah, he's obviously Doug is a quarterback's coach. He's a former quarterback. He's a offensive guy, and I think that's the best case scenario for Trevor early on in his career.
Yeah, it'll be interesting just to see the growth. And of course everyone's saying he's the best quarterback in the AFC South right now. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, and how he handles those expectations, not only for him but the team this year. Now, Of course, he is throwing the ball to a brand new target. That would be Mr. Calvin Ridley. And of course, he had a little bit of a toe injury. I believe it was a cleat issue that he was having going on with his cleats. So how is that kind of shaping up for him now that he's, I guess, switched cleats?
Yeah, it was funny. Doug sort of talked to us yesterday before practice, said, yeah, he's dealing with the toe injury, kind of toe soreness, nothing major. And then after practice, Jags kind of told some members of the media, hey, actually, it was a cleat issue. It wasn't a toe. He just got a little sore because of his cleat. And then today, he said, he was running in some short or some longer cleats during the offseason. It was fine. He wanted to switch over to some shorter ones, during training camp, and that was the issue. So apparently, like it wasn't even really his toe; it was more the bottom of his foot, and sort of that was the case. But now everything's all good. Calvin Ridley is Calvin Ridley. So over the past few weeks or a couple weeks, it's been crazy to watch him. I mean, I personally never seen a Jaguar receiver who looked this good in training camp, and that's in terms of his route running ability, and you have to remember, Christian Kirk is still on the team. He's a great route runner too. Jamal Agnew is a fantastic route runner, only in year 4 basically of his wide receiver tenure. But Calvin Ridley is just a different level, and I think that's something that the Jags offense didn't really have last year in terms of being able to have a guy that can be a great route runner, but also, a guy that can beat you deep and a guy that can, catch the back shoulders, a guy that can be a red zone threat. They didn't have that one guy packaged into just one player. They had several guys that could do different things. So I think this is going to be, interesting to see, a year and a half off basically for him. How he comes back, how he sort of gels with Trevor, how he gels with this offense. It's going to be really interesting to see, but so far it seems like it's going well.
Yeah, definitely another weapon for an already loaded offense. And, what things are, I have to ask, with him being there, what does it kind of mean to that offense in terms of the explosive nature? Because to me, I look at the weapons they have. You have an Evan Ingram, you have a Christian Kirk, you have Zay Jones, a.k.a. Bruce Leroy. Now you have Calvin Ridley, and then you got Etienne at tailback. I mean, looking at that, you have an explosive offense. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they put up almost 30 points a game. It would not shock me. Is that kind of potentially the lethal expectation that some may have for them?
They have that expectation. So Doug has told us, they scored around 23 points per game last year. They want to get up 7 more points. So they want to get to your 30 point per game. And I think that's sort of the expectation they have. Obviously 30 points per game. I haven't looked it up, but that's got to be some sort of record. I doubt they'll get to there. But yeah, they agree that their expectations and all of our expectations are for this to be one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. And I think that's fine to expect. Last year they were ranked 10th. It's not like they were a bad offense last year. They were a good offense for most of the season, especially late. So yeah, adding a guy like Ridley to go along with, Travis Etienne, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Jamal Agnew, who I mentioned before. I mean, those all 5 or 6 of those guys have, major impact. And if you put them on almost any other team, they're going to be playing some snaps. So yeah, this is an offense that it really, everybody talks about Trevor, everybody talks about the receivers, even tight end, but everyone always seems to forget about Etienne, who, he was one of the most sensational ACC runners in history. And then at Clemson. So, it's a situation where it's like, wow, I mean, where's the weakness? We'll find out, offensive line, whatever it may be. But right now, as far as weapons goes, I mean, I would put them up against almost anybody in the league.
I hear you there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It's amazing to think where they came from a couple years ago. But we're going to talk about we talked about offense, but we're going to talk about defense. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick commercial break on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, Why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We talked about the offense, Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, the explosion that can be there when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. But you do need the other side of the ball, which would be that Jacksonville defense. Now, they did add a few pieces last year, mainly Mr. Olaquan in the middle, leading the NFL in tackles. But this year, they're expected, there's a couple other guys that are expected to potentially lead, be to the forefront of this team. Mm-hmm. One of those guys that's actually been on the team for a while, that'd be Mr. Josh Allen. No, not Josh Allen, the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. We're talking about the outside linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, his first year, his rookie season, he had a great rookie season, 10.5 sacks, but he has never reached double-digit sacks since then. Going into this year, I believe he had 2.5, or I don't know how many he had last year, but it just was bad. It wasn't, or 7. Was it 7 or 2.5? I can't remember.
It was 7. It was 7. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was the year before. I think he had 2.5. But It just, to me, I think this is a huge year for him because it's his 5th year. They have to pay him after this, or decide to pay him. So it would behoove him to have a big year. So do you kind of think he's how do you think he's kind of approaching camp so far in terms of how he's looking out there?
Yeah, just to go back a little bit, it's kind of crazy to think about, his rookie season, 10.5 sacks, and then how you introduced him, the other Josh Allen. People around in Jacksonville used to call this Josh Allen the good Josh Allen because remember, Buffalo's Josh Allen wasn't having a great start to his career. But the roles have kind of reversed, not to say that this Josh Allen is bad now, but the expectations were so high, that this guy's supposed to come in, get double-digit sacks every year, lead the team in pressures, which he has done to his credit. He hasn't done the double-digit sacks, but he's done pretty well at pressures. And, this year, absolutely, it's his final season, potentially in Jacksonville. I do know that even if he, say he gets 8 sacks this year, the Jags want to move on. He's going to get a great contract from somebody just because of his potential, his athleticism, what he brings to the table as a run defender, disruptor, and as a pass rusher. And in most cases, he's going to do a really good job on the open market. But, just getting back to this year, his mindset, and he hasn't really said it, but you can kind of see on the field how he's approaching it. He took the offseason off in terms of he didn't come to the voluntary portion of the offseason, came to all the mandatory stuff, came to training camp, has not had a dispute about his contract. He's just here to prove to not only himself, but probably the rest of the league that he's here to play. And you can see that during training camp so far the last couple of weeks. He's been impressive in terms of his bursts. I feel like he's been one of the most dominant players on the field for their defense. I'm sure we'll talk about Tyson Campbell later, but Josh has been fantastic in terms of his pass rush and everything like that. And I think that what they need now is sort of to have that 1-2 punch. When it was his rookie season, remember he had Yannick Ngakoue coming off the other edge. He had Calais Campbell inside. He had players around him that could make him better, make it easier on him to get sacks. Now that he doesn't have that, he wasn't able to take that second step yet. But this year is his final year, and I think that he has a really good opportunity to do it this season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be unique to see how he's able to do this year. Of course, like you said, he's being silent. He's just going out there and playing. He knows the contract. He knows the things that are on the line. He's just trying to put his best foot forward, which definitely somebody's going to pay him. I'm not crazy enough to think nobody's going to pay him, but it just for him, it would be best for him to have one of his best years in the NFL right now, basically.
Mhm.
So you mentioned him just going up there and doing his job and things like that. The leadership portion. Now, I've heard people speak about him being potentially a leader or being a leader of this team.
Mhm.
Is that still the same level, or is it more kind of a focus on what he needs to do right now?
Honestly, this has been Josh all his career. He's always been very good about talking about other players rather than himself. He's not a guy who's going to talk about himself. If you ask him a question about himself, he'll just give you very canned answers. You ask him a question about a practice squad tight end, he'll give you a long soliloquy or a long monologue. It's just that's the type of person he is. So I think his leadership, it's not very much a in your face raw type of leadership. It's more of like a silent, lead by example, but also, pump up his teammates when he needs to. A good example of that was the other day we got him on the podium and we asked him about Caleb Von Chason, who's another guy that they're expecting or they need to, take that next step. He hasn't been able to thus far. And he's talked about how Caleb Von has taken that sort of leadership role for the younger players, just to show how far he's gone and gotten. And now Josh is thinking, he's going to be the next pass rusher for this team, Caleb Von Chason. He's a guy that can come in and be that third pass rusher off the bench. So, he's done a great job at the leadership stuff. I think that's one thing that the Jaguars love about him. They love that he loves football. They love that he's good, but they also love what he can bring to the locker room. So, on that aspect, absolutely, he's got an A+.
All right, I hear you there. Another guy that's bringing an A+ is Tyson Campbell. Now, when he was drafted, people thought about him, and they didn't really think of Tyson Campbell and star corner at the same the same sentence. But now he is the corner there. He is the star corner there. Mr. Griffin was supposed to be that guy, or was thought to be that guy, but it just didn't pan out. Now everyone's wondering who's going to line up opposite of Tyson Campbell, but for now, we're just going to stick on Tyson. He is the number one corner, and it happened over time. How do you think he has looked so far in this year's camp?
He's looked like the best defender on the team. I mean, I talked about Josh and aside from Josh and aside from Campbell, both the players could be thought of as the best player on defense right now. He's coming and it looks like he's focused and it looks like he can lock down anybody. He's had some great battles with Calvin Ridley lately, and you can tell how much Calvin respects him too. He even said earlier today that he only wants to go up against Tyson Campbell in training camp because he knows how good of a player he is. Tyson gave Ridley similar praise yesterday, where he was saying, it makes him better. It's going to make his season so much easier to have to go against Calvin Ridley every day in practice. And yeah, you can see it. He won reps against Calvin. Calvin won a couple reps against Tyson. That's that back and forth you want to see from guys who are supposed to be the best at their position on the team. So right now, yeah, Tyson, he was a top 10 corner last year in the NFL, according to a bunch of metrics. I don't think he got the sort of recognition that he deserves, but that's playing in Jacksonville. That's playing for a team that's still on the rise. That's playing with the defense that wasn't necessarily amazing last year. So, I think this year it's going to be a little bit different story. I think a lot more eyes are going to be on Tyson Campbell. A lot more attention is going to be heading his way, and he's sort of embraced it. That's his mindset. He wants to be the best defender in the league. He wants to be the best corner in the league. And, I think he's on his way to becoming one of those players who you think, oh boy, you got to just throw away from him and go to the other side.
Now, we did talk about Tyson Campbell, but we do have to talk about the other side. I just wanted to start it off with Tyson Campbell, keeping on the positive, but the other side, it's a lot of questions going on out there. You drafted a couple guys, I believe a guy from Rutgers as well. You still have Williams from the Rams as well, but he's more of a slot guy. So right now, I mean, who's in the mix for that position opposite him? I mean, there's a lot of people that nobody knows of, I should say, that are trying to fill that position.
Yeah, they actually play Darius. So Darius plays outside with the Jaguars. So right now he's been playing there, and so that's sort of where I think that they like him at. It's funny because last year, you're right. He was the slot guy, and they sort of had to go away from him being the slot because of injuries and stuff like that. And he went outside and performed well. When they signed him, they kept praising him. They kept hyping him up as a slot guy. He had never really done that with the Rams. So, I mean, like that's the thing where, they kind of figured him out. And I think that's the situation there. But in the nickel cornerback position, you're right. I mean, that position is sort of open per se, because Trey Herndon sort of has that role just by default. Not to knock Trey too much, obviously he's a good player, but they want some more out of that position. They want somebody. That's why they drafted a couple guys even late. That's why they drafted guys last year. They have four younger players that could come in and try to push him for that starting role. Right now, that's just not happening. So outside sort of locked in. Just because of the situation they're in, that they just don't think that they have another guy that can play that position besides Darius, at least at that level. So, right now, if there's a battle, it would be inside at the slot position. And right now, Trey Herndon sort of holds that. But, Christian Braswell, who they drafted from Rutgers that you mentioned, they drafted Eric Hallett from, I think, Pitt. So there's a couple guys on the team that, has showed out, and they're going to see if maybe they can fit them in somewhere. But for now, that's sort of where they're at.
I hear you there. Now, as far as the defense, of course, we talked about the secondary. We talked about the guys up front. We didn't talk Trayvon Walker, which, usually that would be a part of talking Jacksonville. But, he's still in his maturation stage, still trying to figure it out, those different things. The linebacker spot, you have Olaquan, and then you have kind of a rotating door of the people beside him. I would say it's you have two second-year guys that they drafted last year. You have Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma that are there. And they both played a little bit there. So at that position, there's probably still a battle going on. So, I mean, how's it shaping up in that position?
It looks like Devin sort of secured it so far. Chad, did a good job last season coming in and sort of giving Devin a breather, because Devin really needed it. And he'll admit that. That's not even being rude to him. He said, last year was sort of a down year for him. The rookie wall was hit. I mean, it is what it is. And so he took it upon himself this year to sort of get back to basics, make sure to reset himself, not take too much of a look at social media, things like that. And I think that right now he's really focused. He looks fantastic, in my opinion, coming out of this year's training camp. He's just looked like he knows where he's going, and that was an issue last year. He just sometimes didn't know exactly where to go. He looks like he's able to get after it in the run game. Got a couple tackles for loss. Got a couple sacks. Quote unquote sacks against the redshirted quarterback. So I think right now Devin's got that position secured. Obviously Foye on the other side, and then Chad Muma, he's come in and given Foye some breathers, because I think there might be some sort of either an issue or Veterans Day off a couple days in a row for him. So Chad's been able to come in and actually do a good job, I guess, there. I haven't noticed him too much, but Devin definitely I've noticed, and I think that he's ready to take that next step. There's a reason why they drafted him in the first round, and I think that we're starting to see it a little bit. And obviously all that, none of this matters until the games really start.
That's true. I definitely wondered about that, because I noticed he was playing, and then all of a sudden Muma came in, and I was like, hold on, what happened here? But, now it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely the rookie wall is a real thing, people. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and do a little bit of camp observations, and then we're going to have the game. But, hey, we got to take a quick break. We got to pay these bills on Touring AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.
You ever missed your mom's home-cooked meals? Well, you're not always able to get to those, but you are able to get to H&T's Home Cooking. Established in 2005, Patty Palin and her staff go out 6 days a week to create some of the best home-style meals you can taste, and at a fair price. So if you're in Nashville and you like chicken and dressings, green beans, macaroni and cheese, and other things, stop by H&T's Home Cooking. The address is 2264 Murfreesboro Pike, Nashville, Tennessee 37217, and they are open Monday through Thursday and Sunday 11 to 6:30, and Friday 11 to 7. And if you want to order online, of course, the option is available as well at hthomecooking.com, or you can call 615-367-0049. H&T's Home Cooking. food for your soul.
That commercial makes me hungry every time I listen to
I'm
it.
starving.
Oh man, next time you're in town, man, I'll see if we can roll out there, man.
I'll take you up on that for sure, man. I love finding new food places. You know, traveling around after last season, it enlightened me to different types of food. So I'm ready.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, of course, we talked about the offense and defense, but we just want to talk about the overall Jacksonville Jaguars camp. The kind of overall, what are some of the things that kind of stand out, or the players that kind of stand out offensively right now? Kind of different from the usual suspects.
Yeah, just guys that are sort of under the radar. One of my guys, and I say my guys, I'm just saying a guy that I've sort of hyped up over the last few days is Garrett Prince, the tight end. They lost Dan Arnold, they lost Chris Manhurt, so they needed guys to come in and be able to take over that role. And Garrett's done a great job. He was with them on the practice squad last season. Didn't make the final roster, but he made the practice squad. Did a great job of taking, initiative, learning on the scout team. He didn't get that many reps. Now he got a ton of reps during OTAs with Evan out and with Brenton coming in as a rookie. Garrett was pretty much the guy, him and Luke Farrell. So, it's an interesting dynamic to see him sort of take that next step. And I think that's something to look forward to moving forward. I really do think that he's going to be a guy that can actually come in and actually help this offense even more. Not that they should need too much help, but yeah, other guys standing out on offense. I talked about Jamal Agnew. He's sort of a guy I think is sort of under the radar. He's not somebody you're going to talk about in terms of the big threes, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, but you got Jamal Agnew back there, and he's shifty, he's quick, he's fast. He's a guy who last season was honestly, without Jamal Agnew last season, they wouldn't have been in the playoffs. They wouldn't have won as many games as they did, because he really set them up as far as his punt return ability, his kick return ability. He really gave them a chance to win at any point. So, he's a guy who's coming into his third year, I believe, now with the team, and only really his fourth season playing receiver, but he's looked crisp, he's looked good, and I think that those are two guys I would have to point out as those who have stood out really.
Yeah, it'd be amazing if they actually change his number from a defensive back number one day. But we'll see what happens there.
I think it's staying. Yeah, that 39 is so ugly. I don't know. I'll have to talk to him about that. See what we can do.
So, what's some things that actually kind of offensively kind of disappointed you, or you kind of haven't lived up to your expectation?
Something not necessarily lived up to expectations. It's more so I didn't really know what to think, and seeing it, I still don't know. It's the offensive line. I think there's a lot of issues here where you got a rookie right tackle who's been out a couple of days with a shoulder injury. They're calling it. He's out there, but he's not actually participating a lot. And then you have the left guard, Ben Barch, who's on PUP. Tyler Shatley was out today. So, that guard position is kind of weird. You got Cam Robinson, who's going to serve his 4-game suspension to start the season. Walker Little is now going to be the starting left tackle for a couple games. So, it's just a weird situation where I'm a little concerned that they're going to start off a little bit rusty, because they're not going to have played as a cohesive unit for too long. And then all of a sudden they're going to have to switch. So, after week 4 and Cam Robinson's starting to come back, they've already been trying Walker Little at left guard. So, he could come in and have to play left guard, Cam Robinson play left tackle. And how is that dynamic going to work? So, right now it's a little confusing. I think that's the most concern I have for the Jaguars offense right now.
All right. Defensively, of course, we spoke about Tyson Campbell. We talked about Josh Allen. But what's a player that's kind of, that kind of less heralded, that's kind of stepping up and doing a few things and might make the team or make a difference?
Yeah. We talk about Devin Lloyd. I think he will make a big difference, but a guy under the radar or somebody who will make the team for sure. But I don't know how much he's going to play. Antonio Johnson, their 5th round pick. Every day at practice, I'm like, how did this guy fall to the 5th round? I remember before the draft, I thought he was going to be a 2nd round pick out of Texas A&M, and he's definitely proved to be. He's probably the most he's definitely the most physically gifted. It looks like the most physically gifted safety or defensive back on the team. Just long guy, filled out, nice. It just looks like he's ready to go. If you told me he was going to start week 1, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's the type of player he's been so far. Heath Farwell, the special teams coordinator, has talked about him too, and he's talked about how he stood out as a rookie, and for those guys. Obviously making the team starts on special teams, and he's done a lot, obviously, on defense too. He's been able to play in the slot a little bit, not the slot you would think of, more of like a big slot safety kind of guy, and play in the box as well, that Rayshon Jenkins role. But yeah, he's a guy that's definitely stood out. The other rookie, Eric Hallett, he's actually playing both safety and corner. So, at this point, that versatility has shown out a little bit for me. And I think that those are two guys that really have proven, to me at least, that they deserve to be on the team, and I'm interested to see where their career trajectory goes.
Now, as far as the flip side again, somebody that either disappointing or kind of you don't know what to make of that you're seeing defensively.
Yeah, I mean this one's easy. The pass rush in general. I mean, Trayvon Walker. Hasn't necessarily stood out too much thus far in camp, but I think he'll be fine. Josh Allen looks good, and then after that, it's like I don't know. I mean, DeJuan Smoot's coming back off of that Achilles injury, still on PUP. Probably won't see him until October. After the first 6 weeks of the season, I really do think that he'll start the season on PUP. And then you lost Arden Key to the Titans. The man who built up this culture, at least from his perspective. He was a good player though for them. He was the guy who got the second most pressures among all the defensive players last season for them. Got a few sacks, and they're struggling to replace him, in my opinion. Caleb Von Chason's supposed to be the next guy up, but really, I personally have not seen it out of him in training camp. I haven't seen it. I've seen him get mauled a few times. I've seen maybe a couple pressures that he's put on, but right now I just really feel, if I were them, I would be worried about that third pass rusher, which, if you watch this game, it's not just about the first two guys. This thing has to be coming in waves. So it's going to be a big concern. And, if a guy goes down, what are they going to do?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I know you're going to be keeping your eyes and ears open, definitely watching the Jacksonville Jaguars camp and all that's going on. But, of course, like every episode, we do finish up with a game. We got 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. Could be football, could be music, could be anything else. Are you ready?
I think so.
All right. First question, Fred Taylor or Maurice Jones-Drew? You need 1 game to win. Which tailback or running back are you taking?
Oh, my gosh. You started me off with a hard one. I'll try to be faster. I'll say Fred Taylor. I love MJD. I grew up in Jacksonville, so watching MJD was, he was my running back or whatever you want to say, for the Jaguars at that point. But Fred Taylor is just, he's special. He should be a Hall of Famer.
There we have it. All right, now we're gonna talk DJ Khaled now. Okay. We got 2 songs.
Another one.
I'm So Hood, or we got Wild Thoughts. You got 1 song. Which one are you taking that you listen to, one or the other?
What was the first one you said again?
I'm So Hood.
Oh, I gotta go. I'm So Hood. I think that's sort of it's more of a classic. I think now at this point, it's been so long since it came out. I used to listen to that all the time back in the day, so I'm gonna go with I'm So Hood. I like Wild Thoughts too. That one's good, but I'm So Hood.
All right, there you go. You're not going to go with the exclusive Rihanna singing. Like, probably the last appearance we'll see of her singing a real song.
Probably
singing a new song, I should say.
It's looking like it.
All right, the next one. You have to cheer for one team. Are you cheering for Tennessee or Indianapolis?
Oof. I don't really have as much stake in this, but I'll get crucified by the Jaguar fan base if I say Tennessee. So I'm gonna have to go with Indy. Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, those kind of guys. Absolutely, I'll go with Indy. And I'll say this: I covered Anthony Richardson at Florida for a couple of years. That guy is amazing, amazing person. So if I had to choose one, it would be them because of him.
Okay, all right. Now I'm going to mention 2 Florida rappers: Pitbull or Flo Rida. Which one? You have to pick one of them, and you're taking a 4-hour ride. Which one are you listening to?
I can't pass. No,
Nah,
no, I'm just kidding. I'll pick I'll pick Pitbull. I'm not a huge fan of either one. Not gonna lie. But Pitbull probably. Flow Rida, I feel like I've heard too much of him at times. But yeah, Pitbull. I feel like Flow Rida is all over the. He does a concert everywhere he can. It seems like he'll just turn up somewhere. So Pitbull, I'll choose him.
So remember that, people. You might go to your local bar in Florida, and Flow Rider might just magically appear.
No, for real. Like actually.
All right. Who's more likely to repeat their career year? Evan Ingram or Christian Kirk?
Ooh. Ah, man. If I had to choose, that one's tough too. I'm gonna say Christian, if only because I think there's not gonna be as many balls being able to pass to Evan as there will be Christian with Calvin taking some attention away from him. I think that Christian will be able to have even better of a season potentially than he did last year. So Christian.
All right. That's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. You're off the hot seat, man. And that's the end of the show. Now, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to give the floor to you. Of course, tell everyone where they can find you on social media and what all you're working on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on every time. It's always a great time. So anytime you want me to be on, I can be there pretty much. But yeah, on Twitter or whatever you want to call it these days, at Demetrius82. I'm on the other social media platforms, but not really. So I won't shout those out. What I'm working on though is on Jacksonville.com. It's going to be today. I wrote up, Calvin Ridley and his relationship with Tyson Campbell and how that battle's sort of going. I'm going to be taking a deeper dive into Devin Lloyd's career. I really want to get a feature done on Yasir Abdullah, who hasn't stood out necessarily so far as a pass rusher, but he's a guy that they love, and he used to work with Elvis Dumervil, and he was close with his late nephew. So he's an interesting story coming out of Louisville. So that's something that I'll probably be working on. But every day during Jaguars training camp, I'll have stories up. So if you're interested in the Jaguars, go to Jacksonville.com.
There we have it. Of course, you all know me. I'm the host of the show, Mike Patton. You can find me on Twitter at MikePatton82. That's MikePatton82. You can find me on Instagram at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And of course, you can find Touring the AFC South on all your listening platforms and here on YouTube as well. Hello, everybody. You can see us on YouTube, I should say. But go ahead, like, subscribe, share, comment, whatever. Hey, just support. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.